Hello everybody and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. For today's video, I'm going to be breaking down the top 10 altcoins out of the 100 in total market cap, and we're going to be looking at the ones that I think could be giving some of the biggest returns going into this next cycle. These are altcoins that are pretty much accessible to anybody no matter where you're from and what your country is, you're going to be able to buy them. So we're going to be breaking them down. I'm going to do some TA and I'm going to explain exactly why I think some of these are going to be the best performers long term. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and with that being said, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Alrighty guys, so as we're starting today's video, I wanted to quickly look at Bitcoin, and as you guys can tell, Bitcoin is making a significant breakout. I think finally Bitcoin is about to make that much bigger move and the push all the way up to the top of these lower highs, being anywhere. I think that because we've just consolidated in this uptrend all the way to 40K, we're going to end up surpassing that. And so I'm thinking like 43, 45 to 48 and a half, anywhere up in there. We're coming to a major resistance level. We've got that, and we've got that. And I definitely think that we can top at any of those levels. I don't know what the price is going to top at. Nobody really does. That's why all we can do is, if you've been buying down in here, is just look to take some profit. Wherever it tops, you're not always going to nail the exact top. You're not always going to nail the exact bottom. But a sustained move like this, and then a much bigger sort of blow off top scenario, because anytime you see price action where you've already seen a big breakout, but then you're making this really steep sort of trend line and the market's just going more parabolic. A lot of people draw this as a rising wedge and they all say, oh, it's going to die because we have bearish divergence. But the market continues to, keep bearish divergence and just breaks out. This type of price action happens before a sort of blow off top scenario comes in. So I do think that we should just be aware of that. Now let's talk a little bit about the top 10 altcoins of the top 100 in total market cap that I think are going to be providing some of the best gains. New altcoins as well as old altcoins from the last cycle. Regardless, these are the ones that I think are going to do the best. So first up on today's video is going to be Solana. Already Solana's seen some of the most upside to begin the cycle, and it's not necessarily just the price of Solana and the token itself that I think is bullish, but when we're looking at Solana, we're actually looking at the ecosystem. There's an entire DeFi ecosystem. There's an entire NFT community inside of Solana that is going to be profitable. So there's a lot of undervalued stuff to still be looking at long term, and that's why I think that even though we've already started breaking out, we still have a decent way to go when we're looking at the big picture. We've broken from all descending resistance. All we're doing right now is making just the first impulses to really kick off this new bull run. And I think that our wave 3, we're inside of that right now. I think our wave 3 could probably end up topping anywhere from 120 all the way up here to like 140. So we're going to draw that there, some type of wave 4, and then we're still looking at another wave 5 to come after that. All we've really done inside of this wave 3 is a wave 1, and we're working inside of wave 3 of 3 right now. I think that we've got one more high to about $78. We'll see another pullback, and then I still think that we've got another push that's going to be the one that takes us all the way back up to the tops of this lower high. So far, this one's been a leader. I expect it to continue to do so. And so the best scenario now is if you feel like you're outpriced from the token, even though I don't think you are. Look for the ecosystem, look for the DeFi protocols, look for what's doing really well on Ethereum, and then look to kind of mimic some of that inside of Solana. Now, when I look at this, all it's really doing is just building the very beginning stages of this new parabolic curve, and that's where I think that we're going to be going as we build a new foundation going into new all-time highs. So long term, this thing's going to far surpass new all-time highs. I think that Solana could hit $1,000 in this next cycle. So if Solana is sitting at $1,000 in the next cycle, we got to expect that there's a whole ecosystem that's going to be absolutely booming in the process. So be watching out for that one long term. Now, next up is going to be Chainlink. Chainlink's another one of my favorites because you can't have DeFi without Chainlink. And I've talked a lot about why I believe DeFi is going to be probably the most profitable strategy inside of the market, because institutions are going to be coming into DeFi, and DeFi as a whole is going to blow up. So we want to look for tokens. What is the most important token in DeFi? Chainlink. It's the heart and soul of DeFi. Without Chainlink, DeFi really can't exist, and they don't have any sort of major competitor. And so I think that's just a further selling point for why you want to have exposure to this. This is one of my biggest holds, and it's only going to continue to grow from here because I'm only going to hold what I've got. I still think it's pretty much in the same boat as Solana, where you've got a wave 1, and I think that we've got one more high coming in here to about $19.50 before we're done with wave 3. We'll probably see a wave 4 correction come back down here. And then I still think we've got one more push to even come after that. Depending on how high that wave gets, you could see it extend all the way up to like $30 to nearly $40. But if it's just a normal wave 5, we also could see it come right around like 25 bucks. I don't really care. For me, I'm just looking at the long term. And when I look at the long term of Chainlink, all it's done is made a one wave impulse, right? This first cycle was a wave 1. This was a wave 3, wave 4, and that was wave 5. And then in our bear market, that was our first ABC correction all the way back down. So when I look at this entire move, I honestly just see this going insanely parabolic. So I'm not trying to take a lot of profit on these first beginning impulses. Guys, I don't try and take profit below all-time highs. I'm looking for new all-time highs, and that's kind of the way that I play my strategy. Any sort of altcoin that's actually going to see adoption, you're expecting new all-time highs, and it's always been, historically speaking, silly to sell below those all-time highs on anything that actually got adoption. So Chainlink being the epicenter of DeFi, I'm not going to be looking to sell any of this. I'm really looking to hold all of this long term because there just isn't very many narratives that are better positioned than what I think you're going to be able to get with Chainlink. And they just barely finally announced staking. So there's a lot going for it this cycle that there wasn't in the last one. And I think that with DeFi blowing up to what it will, this is also going to see a lot of upside big picture. Sorry for blinding you guys, but next up is going to be Lido DAO. Lido DAO is pretty much the epicenter of liquid staking. Liquid staking is needed because of the ETH merger when it moved to ETH 2.0, and then it moved from proof of work to proof of stake. So now you have liquid staking that exists, and that's a narrative I think is going to be blowing up in a much bigger way. I think that with liquid staking, Lido DAO has already kind of cemented itself as the epicenter of that. They're the biggest leader. Their total market cap is about $2.2 billion or so, but then their total TVL is like $20 billion. So that's something that I think is pretty undervalued, and the market will pick up to that, and then the price will actually start to pick up as well. Now, the big reason I like this is mainly because it's already broken from all descending resistance of the bear market, and then we also have this stacking one wave setting in here. We have a wave 1, a wave 2, and then we have a wave 1 and a wave 2 of 3. So what we have coming in here next is another wave 3, and then another wave 5, right? And so that's what we're going to be expecting to have coming in. And as we look for targets, we have a minimum target of this next move being this 1618 at about $5.35. So I do think that we're going to be running pretty much to those prior all-time highs before any real sort of correction sets in, or at least like before our big picture count needs a correction. And then from there, you know, this is only going to be a wave 3. So we're looking at wave 1, we're looking at maybe like a wave 3 here, wave 4, then we still have a whole nother impulse to come after that. So all these have done, and like I said, guys, these are at the very earliest stages of their cycles. These are just the sub waves, just building the new uptrend. We're going to look at these charts and we're going to zoom out, and they're going to look like almost nothing as the prices have just gone so parabolic. And I really do believe that. This is a crypto that really hasn't been around much of the last cycle. I mean, it was there all of 2021, but for the most part, it really wasn't anything huge until this cycle. Once liquid staking became a big narrative, that was the point where this kind of cemented itself as the leader. So I do think that this one's going to continue to be a leader long term. So next up on today's video, we have Tau or Bittensor. When we're looking at narratives that could play out in a big way, there's one that I think stands out pretty significantly, and that is AI. AI is obviously going to be a trend that makes people a lot of money for anybody that's early, and it really is just going to be a narrative that also plays out in the real world normally. I use AI every single day for YouTube. I use AI every single day for Twitter, and it's been one of the most useful tools that I've honestly ever had. And so when I'm looking at different cryptos that can see adoption, I don't think that we're going to see much better than Tau, mainly because it's already asserted itself as the top one. It's the top one in total market cap based off of the AI trend. For the most part, I mean, there might be a couple other ones that are maybe a little bit higher, but as far as like new coins, new cycle, this is the one that's front running everything. This is the one that's outperforming anything. Even if there's one that's ranked maybe a little bit higher in market cap, it's not outperforming Tau. And so when we're looking at this, Tau really only has its exchange. And when we look at its exchange, it looks kind of sketchy, to be completely honest. Like, it looks like crap. And when I first was looking into this token from people telling me about it, I thought maybe it was a scam. And I've heard people also give their opinions on it way before it actually started breaking out, and they also kind of thought it was the same. But, you know, I trusted people that told me, so I bought into it. And now I'm really happy that I did, because it is taking off. But we got to remember that this is pretty much listed nowhere. They just pretty much have their own exchange. So once this actually gets adoption, I think that this one could easily be a 20 to a 50x, and maybe even more, depending on how much money actually comes into the AI narrative. This thing is super parabolic, and I really have no idea how high it's going because of the fact we're inside of a wave 3. Remember, when we're looking at this, the last cycle, this is wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, and then a wave 5. So this is currently a wave 3 impulse. And inside of wave 3, they're generally going to be the most impulsive, the most money is made inside of them, the most volume comes in, and it goes the most parabolic. And that's pretty much what we're seeing. So I'm not sitting here trying to predict price, and I'm not even trying to tell you guys to buy right now, because I look at the price and I think, man, that's kind of sketchy. But I talked about this all the way back at 80 and 90 bucks when I first started covering this on YouTube. And so anybody that's holding this, I still think that it's probably going to see more upside the more the Bitcoin breaks out. But when Bitcoin runs up to the top of that lower high, being close to like 45, 50K, I would probably lock up some profits in some of these things. So next up is going to be Injective. Injective is a leader to start off this cycle. One of the things I like about it so far is the fact that it is a leader, and we do have what looks to be a completed impulse coming up here. And I do think that this could extend. Maybe we go to the all-time highs, maybe we go a little higher. Regardless, I think our subwave of this wave 5 is looking like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we got one more push coming before a bigger correction sets in. The most area of demand I see in this chart is pretty much right here, which would be this lower high as we began the bear market. And that's kind of what I'm thinking that it's going to come back down to. So far, it's held the best support out of the market during the corrections, and I think that that's a trend that's most likely going to stick around. So if that is something that plays out, expect something like this, a correction back down here, but then we would expect a new all-time high as we begin a much bigger move. So when I see this, it kind of reminds me of like Dash in the very first cycle of 2017. If we come to a daily time frame, you'll be able to see it a little bit better. But this first sort of breakout that it made, it reminds me a lot of Dash, where it ran to those all-time highs, then it made this correction back down, kind of came relatively close to the mid-range point. But then when we went into the new cycle, that's kind of what it did. And that's more or less along the lines of what I'm expecting to have happen with Injective. You know, it's going to do a variant of that to some degree. But when we're talking in terms of it already leading the cycle, I think it's going to continue to do that big picture. So any dip we get coming up is an opportunity to jump into this one. So watch out for Injective. Next up is going to be Optimism. Optimism is a big leader inside the layer 2 network. It's not as big as Arbitrum, but the token is actually more overvalued as far as, you know, market cap goes. Now, same reason I like Lido DAO is the same reason I like this one, stacking one wave. So we have a one wave, and then we have a wave 1 and a wave 2 of 3. So when we're looking at these long term, these are just the very first beginning uptrend and impulses, I should say, in the uptrend before they just start making these massive sort of breakouts. And pretty soon, as we go further into the cycle, talking 2024, 2025, we're going to be seeing this as pretty much non-existent on the chart. And that's why I think that these are such good opportunities, because all of these are going to massively shrink their prior highs, and I can almost guarantee that. Layer 2s are going to be a huge narrative to watch, and the price of Optimism looks just like the TVL chart of Optimism on DeFi Llama. And I think that the higher the TVL climbs, the more that the price of this is going to go up. Yeah, it doesn't have the greatest tokenomics. Yeah, they have a little bit of inflation because they distribute tokens back to the holders and the early projects, but I think that that's a narrative that's going to stick around, and I'm not so shaken up by the way that they distribute that. It's always going back to the ecosystem. Yeah, they can go market sell if they want to, but as a whole, a lot of these projects actually utilize it in their ecosystems, and as that grows, it ultimately benefits the entire ecosystem too. So I think that this one's going to continue to do well long term, and when we're looking in this a couple years from now, I honestly think that we won't even be I don't even think that you'll hardly be able to even see this thing, considering it'll be up so much from that point. Now, next up is going to be Arbitrum. Arbitrum is pretty much the only other competitor to Optimism, and this one actually has lesser market cap, but I think that's just because of the fact it's only been on exchanges for a shorter period of time. When we're looking at this, we've broken from all descending resistance, and we've also broken from a double bottom formation. We retested that right here, and we're making a higher high before we start that next leg up in here. And I do think that we're at the minimum coming up to the top of this lower high, being about $1.35. But big picture, because we broke out of the double bottom and retested it, that means we have a target of the prior all-time high. So we're looking at $1.81. And I think that this thing's going to even go into new all-time highs in the process. So this is one that I think is going to do, you know, massive numbers. Not so much the token, but the ecosystem. And that's another reason why I talked about Optimism. And another reason I talked about Solana. We're looking at ecosystems that can thrive. The more the ecosystem thrives, the more that the token thrives. And these are two narratives inside the layer twos that I think are going to undoubtedly see a significant amount of adoption long term. The Ethereum network gets congested and sucks. That's exactly why people use Arbitrum. It's exactly why they use Optimism. And we're literally at the beginning of all of the reversals. And so when we're looking at these things down the line, I think they're going to be up massively, and we won't even be able to hardly see these things big picture, because this is just the beginning of the first cycle. Now, next up is going to be Fantom, and Fantom is another layer one that I think is going to end up seeing a lot of adoption long term. Layer ones are going to be something that just perform well simply just because of the fact it's an ecosystem. There's DeFi protocols, there's NFTs, there's all these different ways for money to come into the market, and it ultimately benefits the entire chain or the native token on the chain. What this has done is pretty much just consolidated on this bottom formation. Even though we've made a higher high, it's only ever made a one wave and a two wave correction, and I think that what comes next is wave 3, and we're coming to at least $1, but we could even extend all the way up to like $1.68 or so if things got really, really crazy. It only has around $800 million in total market cap, so for a layer one, I think that this thing's going to end up doing pretty significant numbers from here, and it's already broken out and done pretty much everything we needed to see. It's broken from all descending resistance with this last move. We've already retested major support. It's probably the last opportunity anybody's really going to have before it finally breaks out of this bottom. So watch out for Fantom. Now, next up is going to be Frax Shares. Frax Shares is another layer two. This one's positioned around the stablecoin narrative. Now, we have more legal clarity around the stablecoin narrative than ever before. We've got the okay from the Federal Reserve, so I don't think you can get more regulatory clarity around anything around stablecoins besides getting that from the Fed. So now that they have that, I think that this is going to do well long term. It looks just the same as the last chart we talked about, sitting around $500 million total market cap. This thing has only ever completed a wave 1 and a wave 2, and so the next move coming is wave 3, and it looks like a pretty obvious rounded bottom formation right in here. This even is pretty much an Adam and Eve bottom formation, when you have this sharp pointed bottom and then you have this kind of rounded secondary bottom. That's what they call an Adam and Eve bottom formation, and we've already broken out of the range, flipped it as support, and it's looking like it's going to be coming into a much more bigger impulse. And so when I look at this one, I think this thing can run all the way up to the top of here, which would be like 25, 26 bucks. And that's mainly because that's our fib targets for this one wave. Up to here, up down to there. 1618 takes us to like $21. So I would say $21 is going to be our real target, but we could even extend all the way up here a little higher depending on how impulsive it actually gets. These are new cryptos that I think could play out in a big way. Some of them have kind of already been around from prior cycles. Fantom was one of those, Chainlink, Solana, but this is one of those that I think is going to end up taking off going into this next cycle. We have Optimism, we've got Arbitrum, we've got Frax Shares, we've got Injective. Those are some of the newer ones of this cycle that I think are going to pop off in a big way, so we just want to be watching out for them. Wanted to talk about some of this, break it down. If you guys found value in this, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos. If you guys want to see how I'm investing my portfolio, every single one of these except for like one was a signal posted to my Discord that we're in profit in. So if you guys want to check those out, links are in the description to go ahead and sign up and join my Discord server and get private access. The way you do that is by signing up on my website linked below. So thank you guys so much. I look forward to seeing you guys in my group. And regardless, I just appreciate the support you guys give watching the videos, like, comment, and subscribing. It all works, and I'm all thankful for it. Thank you all so much, and with that being said, I will catch you in the next one. As always, peace out.